Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Jen, and today, friends, I am your shark scientist. We're going to be talking all about sharks and sharky things and sharky things. So, whatever you'd like to ask, we'd love to be able to hear from you. You're always more than welcome to be able to text on in. Today is currently Friday, January 24th at 3 o'clock. So, our live texting is open and available from 3 to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. So you're welcome to go on ahead, text in any kind of questions that you might have about sharks, comments you might have about sharks, anything shark related. We'd love to hear from you. If it's about their relatives, that's okay too. We'll take them. All good friends here as we talk about sharks. If it is past that time of January 24th at 3 p.m., you're welcome to go on ahead and email us down below at live@lbaop.org, and we'll be happy to be able to answer those questions through our email. All right, friends. So back behind me is actually our wonderful Shark Lagoon right here. So I'm going to step off the screen just to give you some shark inspiration. Ha 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 ha. Yes, shark inspiration today. Here we have some really beautiful sharks that are around and some of their cousins as well. So we can see right here, we have one of our sharks, another one that is swimming on by, some in the background. And then on the very opposite end, right over here, we actually have some stingrays, which we can say are kind of like pancake sharks because they're flat and they are also are related to our shark friends. So let this be inspiration. See if any kind of questions or comments kind of come to mind. We would love to hear from you. All right, now this is a live feed from our Shark Lagoon webcam, so you're welcome to view this 24 hours a day. Though I must say, though, in the evening it does get a little dark. So a lot of times it will go on to our highlights reel, which is a good time nonetheless. So, in my opinion, the mornings are the most beautiful time to be able to check out Shark Lagoon from the way that the sun shines through the water onto the beautiful exhibit here and all of our lovely sharks. All right, so any kind of questions or thoughts come to mind when you think about sharks? I know for me, it's the wide variety of sharks. Believe it or not, there are over 400 different varieties of sharks out there in the world. And not only is that pretty cool, but also the fact that they can live in practically any kind of habitat, any kind of home or environment within our ocean. So if we're thinking about, well, maybe there's some that live, pretty close to the shore. Yes, there are. If you're thinking, well, are there some in the kelp forest where there's lots of seaweed? Uh huh. What about rocky reefs, Jen? You betcha. Sandy shores? Yep, absolutely. Deep sea? Oh, yeah. What about the chilly Arctic? Absolutely. So, no matter where you think about when your mind kind of hops into the ocean, you're like, yes, this is what I picture when I think about the ocean. I'm pretty sure that there will be a shark somewhere there too saying, hello, how's it going? Welcome to my neighborhood. Right? So, again, this is just a picture of what a shark environment could look like. And in this case right now, this is kind of modeled after a coral reef habitat. So we have a lot of fish in there as well, just to really emulate or copy what a natural environment for these sharks would be. Now, one question that we do get from a lot of folks is, well, you have fish in here. Aren't the sharks going to eat the fish? And that is a great question. But believe it or not, sharks and how much they eat is actually quite small. And we here at the Aquarium of the Pacific feed our sharks quite well. They get restaurant quality food, like things like mahi mahi fillets. I mean, I wouldn't mind having one myself, right? It's just an example of some tasty treats that they get. Now, if you're wondering, well, Jen, how exactly do they get this food? They all have a seat at a table. No, I'm not talking about the table coral or any kind of flat surface here, but we actually have feeding stations within our exhibits that the sharks are then kind of trained to go to. So yeah, sharks, pretty smart animals, and they'll go on ahead and they'll get a chance to be trained with a little symbol. A lot of times it's like a little Kong toy, for instance, and they'll drop into the water and they'll know that that's where they're supposed to go in order to be fed. So pretty incredible stuff. But they get fed so well that these fish kind of really aren't their jam. That's not kind of what they're going for. They prefer the food that we're able to feed them. And honestly, that's pretty much enough. We do monitor their diet to make sure that they are happy and healthy and can live wonderfully within this shark lagoon habitat that we have for them. Now, again, if you'd like to go on ahead and reach out and ask a shark related question, I'm all here for it. That's what I am here for the next 25 minutes or so to be able to answer any kind of questions that you might have. Or, if you think about anything special about sharks that you want to share, we're totally open to that as well. Now, if we had to go on ahead and really think about going back to the basics of really what makes a shark a shark, are there any features or characteristics that you think about when you think about sharks? Well, I think for me, it's all about their skeleton. So I'm going to step off the screen so you can watch the shark go on by. Now, believe it or not, friends, they are very flexible, right? You had one kind of swim on by, and it should be coming by again. There it goes. I guess that one was more gliding on by. But as you get a chance to watch them, especially with the tail of our gray reef shark here, right, we can see how flexible their back end is. And really, their entire body is very flexible because their bodies are made of the same things that our noses and our ears are made out of. Any guesses to what that is? It's cartilage, right? So it's not really bone, but it is a structure inside of us that is very bendy, flexible, but still gives us some kind of structure, right? It's not like our nose is just super floppy. It's still pretty there, but we can wiggle it around. So the same thing for our sharks. Right over here, they are made of that same kind of bendy material, that cartilage, that allows them to be able to move around as gracefully as they do. They are beautiful animals. Now, our stingrays, right, our pancake sharks basically, they too are actually made out of cartilage. So that's another way that sharks and rays are actually related to one another, is because of that cartilage. Are there any other features? Oh, there's a really cute blue spotted ray here. So we can see already, right, how well it's able to move. I mean, this is all muscle right over here. But you can get a chance to see really kind of how flexible our ray is right here. So, thank you, Talia. That's a gorgeous picture of our ray. Ah, very nice. All right. Are there any other features on sharks that you notice? Let's see if we can head on back to that shark lagoon. Or, if not anything that you notice, maybe something that is really that stands out to you. Let's see. Now, one that's kind of tricky to see, she's slightly out of frame, but we have a shark that's actually located right there. Yep, that is a shark that is sitting down in the sand. I guess not sitting down kind of like how we would sit, but believe it or not, it is laying down in the sand. And that actually is our zebra shark. And I think the zebra shark is a really nice example to really kind of also help us figure out what makes a shark as a really unique one right here. Because I think it defies for a lot from what people usually think about when they think about sharks, right? So if we go on ahead, we have our shark right here. And what's pretty incredible about our shark is, well, I think it's rough skin. And this is a really nice picture to where you can see it's not just pixelated, but it's actually really kind of rough. And so what we're seeing here are nice little ridges on our shark, which is actually quite unique to our zebra shark right here. But we're also kind of seeing the ridges and the roughness of the skin. Now, I think there might even, Talia read my mind, who's helping me out today. You can see right here, boop, aside from Boop and that cute nose, is that all of those kind of like patterns that you're seeing, all of those little teeny tiny ridges, all of those are all called dermal denticles. Now, dermal denticles basically means tooth skin. And so when you go to look at your dermatologist, right, that's going to be someone that looks at your skin. And if you think about dentist, right, denticles, it's going to be about your teeth. So tooth or skin's tooth, right? So all we have here is if you go on and you touch this shark, believe it or not, it's going to feel really rough in one direction. And that's because of those dermal denticles. the skin teeth, right, that are there to really kind of be able to protect it in a way. But there's a lot of other really kind of unique things that the dermal denticles do for sharks, including help it to have some antimicrobial properties because of the way that the skin is actually structured, which is kind of cool. Um, and it also helps, yeah, just kind of to keep it healthy overall in general. All right, so that's a really kind of unique feature that sharks have are that dermal denticles, that kind of rough skin all over their entire body right there. Now, of course, the zebra shark actually doesn't look like, if you had to really think about like a typical shark, doesn't really kind of act like a typical shark either. If we go on ahead and we see right here, aside from its really teeny tiny eye, we can see this kind of hole that's right behind it. Now, this is called a spiracle, and what it does is it helps our shark to breathe. If you notice, our zebra shark was actually laying on the ground, and really its body shape and its body type right here, we can see is really flat, right? The way that all of its fins are designed right here, and just the way that they're placed, right? It really allows the shark to just be able to sit comfortably on the ground. It's tricky to see the tail, but the tail almost reminds me of a hockey stick because it is meant to kind of sit up above the ground too. But here's a really great picture, thank you, Talia, of our shark here breathing. And what it does is it's able to use those gills that we have right there, those gill slits, and that spiracle to be able to breathe. So the spiracle will be able to basically bring in water and pump that water through the gills, and the gills will soak up all of that oxygen from the water, and basically the water will go out that way. So those spiracles are really helpful in kind of pumping in that water and shooting them over the gills, and that's of course all happening inside of our shark right there. Now, our stingrays also have those spiracles too. Not all sharks have spiracles, but some of them do. It all depends on their adaptation, right? That word adaptation is just a feature on an animal that helps it to survive in the habitat or home that it lives in. So, for instance, for that zebra shark there, right, it lives on sandy bottom, much like our um, blue spotted ray right here. And you can see those spiracles really nicely. And so all of these animals love to just sit at the bottom, and they'll just go on ahead and draw that water in and push it on over their gills. Now, if you're wondering where are the gills on our rays, believe it or not, they're actually located underneath. And I think I might have a nice visual of that too, if I can go on ahead and find it. But I don't know if Talia happens to have also a picture of it as well, but we can show you a little bit more about what that looks like and how you can see those gill slits underneath. Excellent, right? So right over here, we can go on ahead and see all those gill slits. So that way, right, it's really helpful if they're on the ground. They don't have to breathe in kind of any sandy water, right? They're bringing in really clean water from up above, and they're flushing it down below where it may be sandy. So it's a really kind of fun and different adaptation that these animals have. All right, so that's another feature that sharks as well as stingrays happen to have in common as well. Again, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to go on ahead and text on in. But in the meantime, we can go on ahead and continue talking about different kinds of adaptations on sharks. And this is a great example of an animal, of a shark that doesn't have any spiracles, right? If we had to look for it, the spiracle should be somewhere around here, right behind its very cute little beady eye of our white shark, right? But for our white sharks, they actually don't need to have those spiracles. Instead, the way that they are choosing to breathe, since they happen to live more in the open ocean, meaning that it's going to be blue around where they are a lot of times, what they end up doing is they're able to bring water in through their mouth, and then that passes over their gills. So it's just a different technique, a different adaptation, a different way of breathing for our sharks here. Some of them will have the spiracles if they're a little bit more sedentary or if they happen to be very close to the ground, versus other sharks won't have those spiracles, and maybe they're choosing to go on ahead and bring some of that water into their mouth and over the gills too. So different styles, different adaptations depending upon where they're living. But you know, when we think about a great white shark, I feel like this is probably one of the more quintessential sharks that we think about, right? The more traditional shark that we think about right here. But let's go ahead and see, maybe Talia, if you wouldn't mind putting up another picture of a whole shark, maybe where we could see part of its tail. It can be tricky. Aha, thank you. So here we have a reef shark, and you can see it kind of looks like, yeah, that's a shark, right? You're like, this looks like your standard shark. It's a beautiful shark, right? But it looks exactly what you would probably think about when you think about sharks. Has that cute little, almost like, I call it like a button eye, right? Like, it's really adorable. I think one of my favorite things is really seeing how different the eyes look for different kinds of sharks. But it has that kind of sleek look to it, right? We call it like a fusiform body, the fact that it kind of almost looks like a torpedo or a football kind of shape, right? So it's built for speed in this case for this particular shark variety. And then, of course, we have all of its different fins. Now, for these fins, they all serve different purposes. And we can go on ahead and also like get a chance to label what those parts are in case you're ever curious to the different parts of our shark. So, we're going to be drawing a shark, and believe it or not, drawing's a great way for a lot of scientists to be able to learn about animals and learn also too kind of like the smaller parts, some of the smaller details that, you know, you may not be as familiar with. So in this case, we're just going to be doing the broad strokes of our shark, but here I have basically kind of like a lemon shark, if you will. Ha ha ha. Or maybe a potato shark? Probably looks more like a lemon right now. But with this shark, right, we definitely need some parts to it to make it look sharkier. So we can go on ahead and add an eyeball. We can also go on ahead and give it a mouth. So maybe I want it a nice smiley shark. There we go. So I might add some teeth. And then we can add those gill slits that we talked about. So on average, sharks will have 5 gill slits for all sharks, except for one shark that's known as the 6-gilled shark. Can you take a guess to how many gills it has? 4! I'm kidding, 6! Yes, absolutely 6, right? It has 6 gills. Then there's another shark that has 7 gills, and yes, it is called, or 7-gilled shark, and yes, it has 7 gills, right? But on average, they do happen to have 5 gills. But aside from that, that's pretty much the average. But let's go ahead and let's look at some of its fins. And I think one of the more popular fins that it has is that very top fin right there. And that top fin is called the dorsal fin. All right. So that's the dorsal fin that's right up there. If you want to make a shark fin, right? When you think about sharks, usually it's that top fin that kind of comes into mind. But what role does this dorsal fin play? What is the purpose of it? Any thoughts? Any guesses? Well, we mentioned earlier that my shark is kind of in the shape of a lemon football-esque shape, right? And so if we go on ahead and we think about a football and we throw a football, if you threw your football well, what should it do? It should spiral, right? So you think about the shark, without any fins, especially that top fin, it would actually kind of spiral. Yeah, it would. And so this top fin, this dorsal fin right here, helps to stabilize our shark to make sure that it doesn't get too wobbly as it gets to go fast in the water, right? But if our shark can go fast in the water, that means there's got to be a fin that helps it to be able to move really quickly in the water. Any guesses to what fin that might be? Maybe we can go back to Shark Lagoon and get a chance to see how sharks swim. All right, so let's get that visual. Let's step off to the sides. Ooh, there we have our zebra shark. It's actually swimming a little bit. So you can see kind of like that hockey stick tail that I was talking about. It's almost like, you know, it definitely goes up, almost ribbon-like. But it's a really good example of a shark and how it swims. So we can see that's using its back fin right there, right, to be able to swim. And then what about the side fins? What do they use those side fins for? If you're thinking direction, yeah. So it's kind of nice to be able to see these animals in action. And this is the way that scientists are actually able to study sharks. If you can make observations by watching them, that's awesome. If you're there live to be able to see them, even better. But a lot of times, scientists will use different kinds of cameras to be able to watch the behavior of sharks. Just like how we're doing now. You all didn't know that you too were shark scientists, huh? All right, let's go on ahead and add some of our different components back to our shark here so we have a better idea. All right, so here we have my shark. It's a very wide shark. That's okay. There we go. We have one fin here, and then we also have our back one here. So in this case, this is called the caudal fin. And then this one is called the pectoral fin. And there are lots of other fins too. Some sharks will go on ahead and have a few other additional kind of like smaller dorsal fins. Some of them will have little anal fins down here. It just depends on the shark and the amount. But the basic workings of our shark, right, is the fact that our dorsal fin, on average, pretty much allows our shark to be able to stay in balance of where it's going, right? It helps it from being able to roll too much back and forth. These pectoral fins are great for directionality, to help them to kind of steer, just like a plane. And then we have our caudal fin back here that's really kind of focused on creating that power, right, of motion to be able to help it to swim and propel itself through the water. Not a bad looking shark, if I do say so myself, right? So those are the basic parts of a shark. But if we go on ahead and we kind of look a little bit closer, there are some additional features to our shark that are less visible even to the eye as we get a chance to look at it. And one of them is actually called a lateral line. I think there might be one picture of a shark that has a lateral line. But if I went ahead and I kind of added it into my shark right there, that's pretty much the line. Now, it's not a super obvious line. It can be for some fish, but it's very subtle on most sharks. But what this lateral line does is it allows our shark, as well as bony fish too, to be able to kind of sense their environment in a way that's really different from anything that we could really feel. And that would actually be kind of the pressure of animals that might be nearby within the water. Ah, thank you, Talia. That's awesome. So we can see it kind of right here. It's going to be that lateral line. And so that's the line that really kind of, allows the shark to be able to feel, okay, there's other animals around me and I have a general idea of what direction they're going in. So for instance, fish that are schooling, right? A lot of times they know the direction in which their neighbors are going in that school because of that lateral line. It's a really cool, unique thing. Another unique thing that sharks happen to have specifically, as well as rays, which is really tricky to see, but is actually all up in the front right over here, something called the ampullae of Lorenzini. I'll write that out because that's a huge word. All right. So, ampullae of Lorenzini are basically little pockets of fluid within the actual gel, basically within the shark's front area that allows it to be able to sense electrical pulses found in the water. So if you're like, hey, sharks have a sixth sense, they sure do. It's because of the ampullae of Lorenzini that allows them to be able to get that sense. Ah, yeah, thank you, Talia. So here we have a close-up of a shark, a very smiley one, right? And so the ampullae of Lorenzini are usually going to be like little dots that are kind of all around. And that really kind of helps detect maybe a little heartbeat of a fish that's actually found underneath the sand. That's tricky to actually see, but you're able to kind of sense it in a more electrical pulsy sort of way. So it's a really unique thing that sharks have, that additional sixth sense. Now something else that sharks have are these right here, 1, 2. So they have nares, and nares are a little bit different than our actual noses that we happen to have. And that's because our noses help us to smell, they help us to be able to breathe, right? But the nares are actually more focused in on the the smells, less so about the breathing, right? As we kind of talked about breathing in the very beginning, it's those gills that we had a chance to see that really allow all of that oxygen to be coming in. So the nares right back here, they can go on ahead and focus in on the smelling aspect. And as we probably know, sharks have great senses of smell. They can smell food in any direction, are sensitive to detect low concentrations of that food in 1 parts per million. In 1 part per million. So that's pretty small when we think about how big and wide our ocean is. So sharks are pretty incredible animals overall. We only have a few minutes left, so if you have any questions, we'd love to be able to hear from you. Otherwise, you're always welcome to go on ahead and send an email in at live@lbaop.org. Here's another great another great picture of a shark. That is our blacktip reef shark right here. Can you guess to how it gets its name? All those little black tips, right? Very original shark scientists can be. But it's another shark that we happen to have here at the aquarium. And believe it or not, if we go on ahead and we think about sharks, again, this is kind of like your quintessential shark, right? The shark on average is about like 6, 7-ish feet or so. Most sharks in the world are actually about 3 feet in length. If you're wondering how big that shark might be, you can go on ahead, create a V, put it down, and that's about the average size of a shark, which is wild to think about. That's about 3 feet in length. Our zebra shark is about 10 feet that we were looking at a lot earlier. Now, our great white shark, that can go up to 23 feet. And of course, the largest shark that there is going to be the whale shark. Ah, look at that beautiful picture right here of a whale shark. So happy. Most of our sharks, I feel like, are pretty happy overall. So our whale shark is going to be the largest. If you're thinking about the smallest shark, if we're talking about sharky fun facts, it's going to be, wait for it, a pocket shark. Yep, that's basically a shark that can fit into your pockets. Not that I recommend it, but it's so small that it could, right? So sharks can really vary in sizes. They can really vary in different kind of coloration and patterns that we're seeing here. They really vary in the habitats that they live in too. So sharks are incredible animals. And one of the reasons why I think sharks are so revered and loved is not only because of their incredible adaptations, but also the fact that they are so incredibly important in the ocean. Without sharks, the health of our ocean would be in decline, and that is because sharks are great at eating and basically, yeah, eating sick fish. So if there happens to be a lot of fish in the ocean and some of them are sick, our sharks will go on ahead and actively go after that sick fish. And with them taking away that sick fish, that enables the rest of the fish population to remain happy and healthy, right? If we didn't have sharks in that area, then maybe more and more fish would get sick, and then our food web, our ocean food web, would be out of balance. So our sharks are incredibly important resources. Now the tricky thing is how do you study these sharks, right? With them being underwater, how do you make sure that their populations are healthy, that they're living in places where they should, or maybe if they're missing from places from where they should be, right? And that's something that Global Finprint, a group of organizations and scientists, are really kind of working on trying to map out the different shark populations. And so what they're doing is they're actually taking what we call BRUVs, which are baited remote underwater like boxes, basically videos. And what they do is they're able to kind of have this baited thing. Aha, I have one right here. At least a little mini example of it, right? So here's an example of what one might look like. And so a made up example at least. And so this little structure would sit at the very bottom of the ocean, and there'd be a camera. And with that camera, we would then have little delicious treats for our sharks. And so the sharks would kind of sniff out those treats, and then they'd be able to see what kind of sharks live in the area, right? So here we have the little tasty shark treats, and we're actually seeing we're at the bottom of the ocean. Clearly this works in areas where the visibility is great, so a lot of times tropical. But here we can go on ahead and see their food that is in there, at least a snack. And then we have a current that's kind of moving some of that fish back and forth there. But it's pretty much stationary, and we're just recording. That's it. We're just waiting to see what kind of comes by Fish are great. That's great that we can kind of see them and get an idea of what fish are around. And so the fish will also try to get a little snack from time to time. That's okay. It's equal opportunity there. But if we are lucky enough, here we go. We can see sharks that come by. Now, the goal isn't necessarily for sharks to take a nibble, though that was always really fun. The goal is just to see what kind of sharks come by and how many of them come by. Are they all the same variety? Are we seeing a lot of different varieties? Are there certain shark behaviors that we're noticing as we get a chance to watch these videos, right? Are we noticing if we have this camera put out day after day, are we noticing the same varieties? Are they coming by at the same time, right? There are so many different questions that we could go on ahead and ask and explore as we get a chance just to put a camera underneath the water with a little bit of a tasty treat to see what information we can find and learn. All right, friends, well, our time is up, but I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. It was great getting a chance to chat with you all about sharks. We definitely have more aquarium online academies coming up next week, so we'd love for you to join us. We'll see you next time. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.